as the prior chair, do you want to start?
As the prior chair, okay, I'll call the meeting to order for the zoning amendment committee on Wednesday, August 27th, 6 PM. First order of business is.
How about September
Oh,
4th?
Yeah. That was
yeah,
the
well, I'm
old
looking
agenda.
at the old agenda, excuse me.
Okay.
September 2nd,
Yep.
2025. And looking at we'd first order of business, maybe we just go around the room and have people identify themselves.
Good evening. So I'm Paul Manzioni. I've served on the ZAC for many years in earlier years, and I've served on the ZBA. I'm now an alternate member, but I was a full-fledged member of that for probably close to 20 years. So I don't know how many years I did ZAC, but I did it for many years, and I just haven't been doing either for.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
I am Norma Dietrich. I'm the code official for the town of Alton. This is my second year on the ZAC committee.
I'm Dick Shea. I'm representing the Board of Selectmen as the alternate board member on the ZAC committee.
I'm Jessie MacArthur. I'm the town planner.
Doug Brown. I have been the chairperson for the ZAC for last year and would love to find somebody graciously to take over as the nominee for substituting in my position going forward in 2026, 2025 and 2026. Paul, any interest?
Not at the moment. I have chaired it in the past.
You have?
No.
Who else is on the committee technically? Maybe we can solicit.
Let's see who else.
Joe Mankus
yeah.
is the other ZBA member that is on this committee. And
Okay.
Nick Bonapane is from the select board.
Or the selectmen.
So
Did I miss anybody?
maybe it'd be good, like if we, at our next meeting, if there are other members present who would either want to either volunteer to do that or want to support someone doing it, and then it's just not the
So we
three of us
capture that in the
deciding it.
minutes. Right.
Yeah, like
Okay.
have that.
So I will continue in the chair seat for the time being at this juncture then.
All right, and we'll just continue elections to the next meeting.
And then moving on, anything in terms of the agenda, any changes since the agenda
There-
prepared?
There are no changes to the agenda, but I did add some stuff to item A under new business. We can go over that when we
Okay.
go through things.
All right. So we need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay, moving on. Okay, then we'll come back to election of officers next week. And then as far as business, new business, Jesse, maybe you want to start off with memo?
Sure. Okay, so in my memo, number one is usually starts off with a discussion with zoning amendments that may not have passed last year. All of our ordinances, the amendments passed. The only question I had is, does the committee want to revisit the flexible zoning subdivision ordinance that was presented the year prior? That didn't pass. Didn't know if you guys wanted to revisit that. That allowed multiple structures on one lot. There were some dimensional requirements. There may have been some flexibility with, setbacks and I think road construction. Didn't know if, so that's sort of on the table.
So could I just ask a question? So
Sure.
this evening, as we go through this process, if we decide, just as an example, we decide, that would be a good thing. We're actually, of course, not going to spend time this evening discussing the substance of what it is, but rather just saying these are the things we'll deal with going forward.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, tonight's just to determine what you guys want to work on.
right, what you
Yeah.
want to work on.
Yeah, I got one in red color, I guess.
So Jesse, are you thinking that if we were to work on that this year, that maybe as a result of that, it would go back on the warrant article and see if it goes through this time,
Yes.
I think?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys wanted to, revisit and, rewrite it.
Right.
And why the sentiment to go back and revisit it? Close enough.
I think there's a big need for housing.
Yeah.
And it does, how it's defined, it's flexible. I think,
The
think
vote
there
was
was a-
pretty close, wasn't it?
yeah, and there was a lot of, I think people were concerned about the flexibility of it.
Right. So, I mean, I wasn't on the committee then, but obviously it was important enough that the committee thought that it should go forward then, and the planning board approved it and went to warrant article.
Yep.
Maybe there were things about it that people realized could be improved or whatever. And if it was important enough, I guess, to last year's committee, maybe we should take another stab at it. Make some
I
changes.
guess we could put it on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss
You
it
could take
again.
a look, see
Yeah.
what,
Right,
you could always axe that off the list if you feel like,
right.
no, that's just doesn't work for the town or whatever.
Because it was a reasonably close vote, as I remember.
Yep. Yeah, and it was quite lengthy.
Yep.
So, okay.
All right.
So number 2. So last year, we amended seasonal cabin. Language was put in, so now, so the seasonal cabins are only allowed on campsites. So now that just rules out every other cabin that is not located on an official campsite in town. So I feel like that needs to either go back to what it was worded previously or something. I just feel like something needs to change.
So is there something known as a year-round cabin? Or is it,
So I guess that's kind of part of the discussion
Yeah, right.
of, seasonal cabins are normally just used in the summertime. But yet we did add in 2022, a winter season from December 15th to March 15th.
what's the definition of a campsite? That was the other question I had.
That's a good question.
Campsite is a parcel of land in a recreational campground or camping park rented for the placement of a tent, an RV, or recreational camping cabin for overnight use of its occupants.
Could you try that again, please? Parcel of land.
Yep, in a recreational campground or camping park rented for the placement of a tent, recreational vehicle, or a recreational camping cabin.
Sorry, Tiffany, if you want to take.
Okay,
over.
no,
Is that what you got it?
I got the gist. of it
Yep.
now.
So does that mean that although I own the cabin, I rent the land that it's on?
Well, probably,
I think
right,
it
because
means
you,
the opposite. I think it means you own the land and you rent
How
whatever.
do you rent the cabin to?
And you could
someone?
probably have a combination of these types of structures or tents there, I'm guessing.
The other question I had on this seasonal cabin that's on the memorandum, it says it can't be used for more than 6 consecutive months. Would that allow someone to use it for 5 months, go home for a day, and then use it 5 more?
But I guess technically they wouldn't have been living in that structure for a solid 6 months, so they wouldn't be able to claim that as their residence. And that's the reason why that got put in there, because it's just a recreational cabin. So,
Okay.
I mean, I suppose they could, but technically, they didn't have a solid 6-month span of time.
And that's tied to people registering their vehicles because of a residence somewhere. They have to be there more than 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
Jesse, when you say seasonal cabin was amended last year, are you referring to the definition was amended?
Yes,
Okay, and the definition, the way it's written now, because you then go on to include that. Let's see,
right. Do you want me to, you want me to read you, I can read you what the definition used to
we
be, and then
have-
you can see how it's different.
oh, okay,
So originally, it just said, a small residential structure that is used for the summer season, May 1st through October 30th, and the winter season, December 15th through March 15th. That was the definition.
okay,
So it didn't limit to where it could be located.
right.
Now it limits it to a campsite.
But you're pointing out that the problem with the amendment is that it leaves out all other cabins. So by that, are you saying cabins that are not in a campsite?
Correct.
And,
So
And
they're
it's im-
technically now not allowed.
well, they're
According,
not defined. They don't meet a definition then, right?
Right.
So in other
They're-
words, the new definition leaves them out. So they're not included in our definitions.
right,
So the suggestion being made is that this year, we look at this definition and see what needs to be done to fix it so that it's all inclusive of cabins in the
Correct.
town.
yeah, because by changing that, that just,
Right. So that looks like a big enough issue that we should probably work on that this year and correct
think
it.
so.
May not take much to correct, but it
Right.
probably needs to be.
yeah, tweak some language or, yeah, something.
Yeah.
Is there a definition of cabins as opposed to?
We only have seasonal cabin, that's it. And then you have, your regular residential uses, single
Right.
family, all that. This is just, it's just seasonal cabin.
And we do not have cottage. Right. So when someone goes to zoning and they want to rebuild the cottage, I make them change it to a structure that's in our permitted use table.
Right.
So it has to be something. What are you building? Oh, you're building a single-family dwelling, then that's what we're gonna call it.
Right.
But I guess to the point then in two here, where it says the amendment leaves out all other cabins, that really is not germane then, correct? Because there is only seasonal cabins. Yes or no? That logic correct?
What's a cabin?
If there's no definition,
We could put cabin and then put seasonal, because most of us think of cabins as seasonal.
yeah.
If it was something.
But that's,
else,
I
we
mean,
would
that,
call it something.
the way this is phrased, it triggers, well, okay, then what is a cabin definition?
I think it just definitely needs to be worked on
Yeah.
somehow.
And do RVs fall under seasonal cabins then? If they're on a campsite?
What did you, I'm sorry.
Does an RV, a trailer, for example, fall under the definition of seasonal cabin?
No, because it's an RV.
Okay, so it specifically has its stuff.
It's a motorized, self-propelled vehicle
Yep.
on a chassis.
So this specifically does address then it has to be a structure of 400 square feet. Okay,
But then you get into, it's also limiting by the number of square feet.
right.
So that, and I think cabin, seasonal cabin, cottage and seasonal cottage should be grouped together in however we want to address these and make some correction to make these easier to work with.
And the monitoring of the seasonal uses, that actually happen?
Good
More
question.
theory than practice.
It probably would only happen if someone files a complaint.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is a seasonal use? We have a definition for it. But in the code enforcement world, it turns into something else when someone's renting what used to be a seasonal cabin and they're using it year round because they stuck a gas heater in the side of it without any permits.
Okay,
I mean, so it gets murky.
Yeah,
all right, so we'll definitely add that one to the list then.
yeah.
Okay, so number 3, Number 3 references definitions. There's a new definition, the abutter definition got amended by the state to broaden the area to where an actual abutter lies. So I feel like that's never been in the ordinance that I could see. I feel like it could be helpful.
And the state adopted new language? there?
Yeah, the only thing I just want to double check and see if it's listed anywhere. That's the one thing I didn't look. If it's in the ordinance anywhere that says a butter, because normally you don't add definitions if it's not in there.
Right.
That's one, so I have to just double check that,
Okay.
but if it's not talked about, then we won't add it, but if it's in there somewhere, I feel like it should be,
It's in the requirements for an applicant to notify butters.
yeah,
So I mean, that in and of itself, I think would warrant a definition of a butter, and then the definition has to be consistent with the state requirement or what the
Yep.
state definition is, so
yeah,
I think we need to do that.
okay.
What would they change?
It just, it broadens the area to where you're considered in a butter. I'd have to look up the language again, I don't want to butcher it.
So maybe you'll be able to be another butter.
Yeah, I think it
without
includes more people, I think that's the thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, lots of times it's by the number of feet. In these rural areas, it's one thing. You get down by the lake, it might be very different. Our GIS system has the capability for you to say, I need an abutter within 500 feet and give a list, and it should be able to list those out for you. That'll be a service we could,
But don't all the
Use
butters
that.
have to be,
like, touching,
tangential?
depends on
I
what their
would think.
definition says.
Yeah, okay, I guess we definitely need
Yeah.
to see the definition.
Yep, there we go. The next one, so I put down storage containers. So there's a property owner in town that wants to propose a business to sell storage containers. We don't have a use for that.
We have a
But this-
definition, but we don't have anything with a regulation regarding those.
So,
There's a sign for somebody coming into the town on 28, I think.
correct.
Yeah.
Right, and to find a use in our use table that fits that business. Jessica and I both looked and weren't able to find anything. I was thinking of maybe something in the permitted use table that would be sort of a ability to catch those outliers that would just say, commercial/other.
And this isn't a storage, this is the outright sale of storage container.
Correct. Yeah, the containers
Not
themselves.
like a My Box where there's
Right.
storing.
So in other words, you go there and you buy a container and you take it away with you to put somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, however he
Why isn't that
functions.
just a retail
I was
business?
gonna say, why isn't it?
Because
No.
it's,
I mean,
I
if
think it's
if I'm
more-
selling
Yeah.
widgets, I'm a retail sales business. If I'm selling containers, I'm a retail sales business. Why would if we start defining what the products are that are being sold, our list will go on and on, from coffee cups to ice cream cones or whatever. I mean, it just seems,
right.
why do we
It's
want to be specific?
Specific to, so the definition is a retail store.
Yeah,
Um,
And
It's, yeah,
he says it's wholesale, and the only wholesale definition we have is wholesale marketing. So there could be a
But I'm-
solution in a few little areas here where we could probably have something that would be useful, if we had something that was just wholesale.
I mean, right now, if it's not on the table of uses, it's not permitted. So, I mean, that's the way our zoning ordinance works. Sometimes if it's not, it works the opposite. If it's not prohibited, it's allowed. If it's not allowed, it's prohibited here in Alton. So, he probably would need a variance if he doesn't fit into a category of retail, but I guess it needs to be looked at, but I'm just not understanding, he's saying it's a wholesale business, and wholesale business is not
right.
allowed on that. in the table of
Right,
uses.
he doesn't quite fit into either definition of wholesale marketing or retail store.
I
I'm
see.
not certain I follow the
Good.
distinction for his wholesale definition versus retail, because
Yeah.
he's selling to the public at large, I presume, right? So
But they technically don't go there, he delivers them, he has an office at his home that is in a different address.
still not certain.
But
that's
he's
that-
still,
that
but he's,
really
so he's
falls into
storing them there.
It still sounds like a
So-
retail business.
Yeah. And I think maybe the solution, rather than changing zoning ordinance, warrant article and all that stuff, why doesn't the individual just go into the ZBA for a variance to have the business unless, as a committee, if we see a need that there are a lot of people coming into town trying to do wholesale business and they can't, because it's not in the table of uses. So we see a lot of it, then we say, oh, maybe we should allow for that. But one individual opening a wholesale business and somehow not fitting in the table of uses, maybe the solution is he goes for a variance
Right, and I
as
guess,
opposed to changing the town zone.
How many variance does he go for?
Well, he
Right.
would, so he's saying that my business is not permitted in the table of uses, and so I want a variance to allow me to operate this business.
right, he'd have to pick a use to get a variance from. Can't just.
No, he'd have to pick a zone to get a variance on. So suppose he's in the commercial zone, and the table of uses does not permit a wholesale business in the commercial zone. He's seeking a variance to have a wholesale business in the commercial zone where it is not otherwise allowed. And then the ZBA would grant or deny his request for that business to operate in the commercial zone.
In the code distinguishes between wholesale and retail?
No, I have no idea. I mean, I think that's one of the things that would, if we look at this, I think one of the things we're going to have to spend time looking at is, should there be a distinction of wholesale and retail in our table of uses? Or does the definition of retail sale, I mean, wholesale almost implies how much you're paying for it. You're buying it in bulk. It's not really necessarily a definition of the commercial activity. It's more of you're selling in bulk for a lower price versus one items to one customer. So I don't know. I think that's something we'd have to
Because I'm a little
discuss.
dubious that this guy is, because typically in a wholesale arrangement, it's usually going to distributors or other third parties that are subsequently selling to a
Right.
consumer at large. And
Right.
I suspect this is not really a wholesale business at the end of the day, my supposition.
But I think the bigger issue is, regardless of whether one person's activity, which seems to me to be a ZBA thing, when one person is trying to do something, when many people, when the town is dealing with an issue that keeps repeating, and we see more and more of this, and our zoning is inadequate for it or it's silent on it, then the committee should look at that and say, geez, a lot of people are trying to do this. Shouldn't we accommodate that in our zoning? But so I think as we look at that, if we decide to look at it, we should look at retail versus wholesale and whether something needs to be changed.
But it's probably never come up before, it sounds like.
I don't think it has,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
All right, so we want to keep
Further
that on,
discussion, I
keep that
guess.
on that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, so I have an addition to number 3, which is, so the first section was add definitions. B is to amend definitions. And that's for pre-site built housing. When I had sat with Norma to go over some stuff, she had noticed that that definition includes language regarding HUD, and it's not correct information, or it's old. So I'll have that on the list for next time, so you guys can see the change.
Yep.
Did HUD change something, or we just
No,
never had it?
But
parallel?
pre-site built homes are modular. And modular has a different RSA than manufactured. Manufactured homes are what we consider mobile homes, and those are HUD, which is a federal. And they have their own regulations, so they all have different regulations. It's kind of murkied the two together.
Yep.
You must go home tired at night. I mean,
Living the dream.
Okay. right, so section 4, was rather lengthy. So section 4 is all about, things that have changed, due to newly enacted laws. The first one has to do with accessory dwelling units. I put the definition on here just so that you had that in front of you as a reference point. Underneath that is proposed definitions, and these came from the state. So what took place was accessory dwelling units are now allowed to be detached. Prior to that, the town only allowed them to be detached, like above a garage or a barn. It's now going to be allowed in the Lakeshore Residential Zone to be detached per this new law. So what I did was I put in section 319, just so I started to change some of the language already. Took out some language that that's had the restrictions. So that's on page 2. Page 3 in number 9 is another law that went into place to where the towns can't restrict the number of parking spaces. Like you can't enforce more parking spaces. So that needs to be changed from 4 to 2. I put in the table of uses so that accessory dwelling units shall be allowed by right in the Lakeshore Residential Zone, as you're no longer allowed to require special exceptions.
Just to come back under, on page 3, number 12. If they can have detached structures, that language doesn't work then, right?
Let's see.
Wouldn't think so.
Okay, thank you. This is why we have committees.
Yeah, but I think the bigger issue is, does this need to be dealt with this year? And I think the absolute answer is yes, because now there's a state statute.
Right,
Yeah,
And
have no
we should
choice.
figure out how we're
Yeah.
gonna deal with it.
Right,
But
'cause it went into effect.
just from the memo you handed out tonight,
Yeah.
I think on accessory dwelling unit, the way you're gonna have to deal with it is you take the table of uses and you put a Y in every zone
Yeah.
across,
Right.
and that's it, because the state's saying it's allowed in every zone
In
with
the-
no,
yeah,
with
in
no
the-
restrictions,
in the
not even.
residential, yeah,
It-
it's where other residential,
So it says,
it's where other residential uses are allowed. So the recreational services zone, residential uses aren't allowed in that zone, so that could actually stay in N if you wanted to, because it already is.
we're gonna have to figure out what,
Yeah.
but it absolutely needs to be changed
Yeah.
to comply with state law.
Yeah, and number 12, I'll put a red flag on that one.
And then there's also, I guess, under, I guess it's 7D, it says, "Town of Alton, in no case shall require an accessory dwelling unit be less than 750 square feet."
Right. Oh.
Page 3, 7D.
That can stay that way.
It can.
Yep. That's,
All right.
that's written into law.
And limit it.
Yep. Page 4, we'd have to remove, from section 413F, that it requires special exception. Section 520, special exceptions, we would remove accessory dwelling unit, as a need for that approval. So there's a bunch of areas for accessory dwelling units that need to be updated.
Yeah.
Let's see, short-term rental. So short-term rental already needs to be updated, due to the parking requirements. I have highlighted in yellow, the language that talks about, the road waivers. There are some changes that took place with that as well. It made the process a little bit easier. but I don't know if the town has the proper regulations or like they list over here. I don't think the town has it enough to where we can do away with having to go to the planning board and having to go to the selectmen. I think the town needs to revisit what we have before that could go away, and it could, according to the new law. So that's, so it's just it's kind of highlighted for now, because I have to
Right.
look into that.
Right.
There's a lot of discussions between the selectmen and town council, so that just might stay status quo for now. That might be something to change next year, and I'm not sure yet.
But it's definitely something the committee has to look at to
Yep.
see whether we have to change it to be compliant with state statute.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that's that. Childcare uses. Let's see, so, I just went ahead and put in, and I paraphrased the law. It's pretty much, all home cares,
This is all
By
state
right?
language,
Yep.
basically?
yeah. And it has to do, just with home care, not center-based care.
Yeah.
They don't need, site plan approval. There's a bunch of things that change with that. So I've put in italics the home-based definitions that will need to be, addressed. I listed the table of uses. The table of uses is, I've suggested some language change, and we can discuss that a little bit more. Not every childcare use is listed out separately in the table of uses. It might be easier to do home-based and center-based. And then that way the center-based ones can just stay status quo, because those don't need to change. But
Is there a definition for both of those?
there are definitions for all of these,
Okay.
all of the childcare uses.
All right.
That one. And so that's it for changes in law. Section, so number 5, section 320, the non-conforming uses, structures and lots, that had a major overhaul last year. And talking with Norma, there seems to be some things in here that make it a little difficult, or they don't quite fit.
Yeah, they seem to be too constricting for
So I
other
didn't
cases.
put any notes in here because I wasn't sure exactly what your issues were. So it's just in here to talk about.
I think when this first came up many years ago, we were dealing with the idea that, you know, somebody had a non-conforming cottage or dwelling place close to the lake or whatever, and they would let it get dilapidated and run down because the thought was if you tore it down and you lost your grandfathering and then you lost your structure altogether and now you just had land and you can't even live there. So we rewrote it and said, look, you can voluntarily tear it down. It's in bad shape. They used to leave one wall up, you know, so they could say, oh, we didn't tear it down. And it was all, you know, it was just a game. So we rewrote it so that people could say, tear the thing down. It's dilapidated, it's unsafe. And people were putting in basements and redoing them and really making them beautiful and safer and all this stuff. And the ordinance also said if you could make it less non-conforming when you do that, so if your land allowed you to push it back farther from the lake or do it, you would do it. And then we didn't require it. We had a separate thing that said if you want to expand it, you can also expand it under certain criteria. And I think when it got rewritten, the provision that allows someone to expand it if they meet certain criteria was eliminated. And in
Yeah,
its place, language was put, stay within the same footprint and no expansion. As long as you don't expand it, you can do all this. And so everybody is now coming in for a variance saying that, but I want to add 8 feet on the roof line, or I want to put a basement under it or whatever, which the zoning ordinance took into consideration previously. You couldn't just do it. You had to come and get a special exception. You had to show that it was all going to be okay. But that was eliminated.
Yeah.
So now it might be better to think about, and this committee could think about, going back to language that allows somebody to voluntarily tear it down, rebuild it, and to expand it within certain limits to satisfy certain criteria, make it less non-conforming. And then they wouldn't have to be seeking variances. They would just do it all under the same special exception.
Right.
So at the next meeting, we'll need to have what it said before
It would
Yeah, I
be
can,
and what we
yeah,
have now,
Yeah.
and how can we
Compare them and see.
and see what worked, because there's
what
definitely
works.
things that worked in the other one, and there was definitely things that didn't work.
Right.
But the new one definitely isn't working well.
Did the state change this, or is this just based on,
Just
Well,
was that,
control.
Just starts, okay,
just,
yeah.
yep.
And I think based on what the ZBA's been seeing for applicants coming in and saying, I'm seeking a variance, and we're going, well, we have a special exception that allows you to do this, so.
yeah.
yeah, so this got rewritten so much
I,
that when it got presented, the entire ordinance was lined out. It
Oh.
was struck through and it was just rewritten instead
I-
of,
yeah.
you know,
yeah,
like we always do, kind of,
Right.
yeah. And so that's how
Expanding.
many changes took place. The entire thing that got struck.
Well, I think it's one of those things that it would be worth looking at this year.
I think if
Yeah.
if we need to prioritize what needs to be looked at, that would definitely be on the list.
And so if, I just want to backtrack just really quick. So the ones that have to do with the laws, I'm going to speak with town council and see if that can be under one proposed amendment
Wow,
instead of
that's a good question.
separate, just because they should be changed anyways, whether they
Right.
pass or not. So I'm feeling like this could be kind of, you know, like a special proposed amendment, sort of administrative by law.
If I remember correctly.
I think we've done that
We,
before.
I think if,
Right.
I remember correctly, I think if it's like a housekeeping one that just changes definitions to comply with state law changes, then I think those qualify for one warrant article.
I think so.
Change the following definitions in our zoning to comply with state statutes, and then you list them, and that may end up being one warrant article. but-
Right.
But
And
I'm not sure.
I think-
Otherwise, there'll be 3 or 4 warrant
Yeah.
articles.
I think there was language added to the warrant article about something, you know, even if it doesn't pass, like it still changes.
Well, the
it does
the
still
state
take
law is
effect
going to
or something.
control it regardless.
Something like that was added to.
Yeah.
I mean, has there been precedent for the town voted down what the state, you know, put in as legally?
There's case law that, and I think statutory law, that the state statutes preempt.
Yeah, I'm sure they do,
Right,
right?
they
By
do.
default.
So
So
even if
It's
the
kinda like
voters say,
a
no,
joke.
we're not doing that, well, the person who comes into town gets to build the accessory dwelling unit regardless of what our
whatever
ordinance
the town
says.
decides, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's,
So it's really just housekeeping.
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
so keeping it as simple and clean as possible.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we're on page 7. The first half of page 7 is the non-conforming ordinance. Number 6, I put in review land use section in the action plan that came out of the master plan update.
Did you take a look at that, just out of curiosity?
I have not cross-referenced that yet. I'm just trying to get updated laws in place.
Yep.
Let's see, number 7 is just an always just ongoing review of definitions and table of uses, which I try to be on top of that every year anyways, which is why we have a big list this year. I do have a couple of additions, just some cleanup
For definitions?
items. They're in other sections, so I'm gonna add a number 9 to this memo.
Okay.
So in the table of uses, there's a little note section. And in some of these uses, tells you to go to certain sections. So you go to the section, say for instance, excavation, tells you to go to section 451. So you go to section 451, and 451 tells you to go to the table of uses. So you just keep
Sorry,
going back and forth.
circular,
So I feel
I got
like,
that from the state.
so there's two sections in here that do that, section 413 and 451.
continuous loop, huh?
And then there are some uses in here that say, see definition in Article 200. So again, I don't feel like that's helpful because why doesn't that state it in every single use? Go see the definition.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's just extra language that just kind of just muddies things
You'll
up.
bring
and
that next time.
Gets a little cluttered. That's just administrative stuff.
Yeah.
And then number 10, so in section 444, that was interesting. Section 444 is special exceptions in the residential commercial zone. And in B, it talks about structure setbacks. And in the residential commercial zone, it allows the zoning board to grant a special exception for a structure to be in a setback, not a variance. A special exception,
Wow. Say that again.
according to B.
It's on page 68, if you want to note it, you can look it up on the
Yeah.
zoning ordinance.
When did that get written?
In 2015. So the problem being, you go to section 327 setbacks, doesn't talk about this.
Right.
You go to variances, doesn't talk about it. But it's stuck under special exceptions under this zone. So unless you knew in the residential commercial zone, you needed a special exception for a setback on a structure. So yeah. So that was something
we find
that
these things.
that I actually didn't know that existed.
Right.
Which is
Yeah,
odd.
yeah.
So you would have to know it existed to know that it was in place. So I feel like maybe in section 327 setbacks, there should be some reference,
Or perhaps that should
or-
be eliminated.
something.
I mean,
Right, or-
subsection B might be eliminated because why would there be
Right.
a specific thing
So
allowing a
if you
special
want, like,
exception?
I can look
beyond
at,
that?
I can look at the history on that, like what was the
Right.
reason
Yeah,
that that
yeah,
got
it
put
was
in
put in
place,
there for some.
right? So whatever you guys want me to do.
Well,
a
we'll
look.
discuss it. I
Yeah.
think that should be
Alright, so I'll
included
do a
in
little
what
bit
we
of
look at this
research.
year, you know.
See why is that one oddity allowed,
Right.
but you have to get a variance in every other
In
time?
every other situation, if you can go into
Like
a
an odd
setback,
reason
you
why,
need a variant.
that's the odd man out.
No,
Did you use AI to come up with that or something?
No, I was actually looking at the C permitted table uses back and forth thing, and then that just, I don't know, sometimes things just pop out.
I compared our definitions to the table of permitted uses, just matching them up. And making sure one wasn't missing out of the other, so
Yep.
that's about as much help as I gave to Jessica this year.
That's all I have.
Any other ZAC member suggestions or proposals for things to be added?
I have
Should
things
we
that don't
look-
make sense to me, and I have no idea what they mean, but
Those are the best kind.
why is that in there? The interesting thing is the applicants sometimes will look for their specific case, so
Drilling down.
they're on a mission for one little thing that they want approved, and they'll find things that I might not have noticed before. So that's helpful too, always learning from somebody.
So is there anything else that we should be looking at in that context?
With all the hoopla that we went through with that Cherry Hill thing
Yeah.
and the issues that were raised with buildable area and lot lines and so on, do we need to change anything or look at anything to eliminate those issues in the future?
Do we have a definition for buildable area? Seems like we don't.
I thought we did.
Well, I remember that the opposition's consultant raised the question of, well, is I've forgotten exactly what it was,
No,
but
we
it
have
had to do with if you had wetlands, then the buffer zone is not a buildable area, if you had a driveway, then that wasn't buildable, and by the time they got finished, you couldn't build anything. But
Well, there are some of those in here, but those are in each district. So each district is somewhat different as to, but usually it's 75% of the lot has to be buildable after you take out slopes and wetlands and whatever. And the setbacks weren't really part of that definition, but generally we don't build in the setbacks. There was argument around that piece of it. There's a thing called a building envelope in here. I
Right.
thought we changed that last year.
Yeah,
They
we did.
put
Building
building-
envelope.
Because to me, the building envelope is the exterior of the building itself and the structure. And buildable area is the lot and what's left after you take out the unbuildables.
Because we always,
But we don't have buildable area as a definition, so.
So that's, you want to add that to the
Not just-
definition list?
my memory is not that good anymore, but it might be worth a look at all of the objections that they raised and see if we're covered. That whole thing about the front lot line,
Right.
it's supposed to go
With the
straight
back.
back. Might be worth a look.
because we always use the term buildable, building envelope. Like at the ZB, when, and that was when you take into consideration all the setbacks of wells, wetlands, side, rear, right of way, et cetera. And, what was left was the building envelope in which you could build a structure. And that's how we always used it and defined it, over the years. But I guess if,
Things change. a
yeah,
little bit,
right. So if probably makes sense to redo the definition and,
Or at least look at it.
yeah, or at least look at it, yeah.
I think building envelope is something that isn't that clear to
Right.
the normal person.
Yeah, right, because like you said, you were thinking that's the inside the structure or where the structure goes as opposed to, and then buildable areas.
Well, in building science and, energy evaluations and all of that type of education that I've had,
Yeah.
building envelope is the assembly of what's keeping the cold out
I
and the
see.
heat in.
Yeah,
So that's that assembly, and that's the envelope of the building.
right,
So that's been drilled in, so it doesn't.
right, and that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so anyway, that's
Yeah.
where I came from.
Any other items?
I hope
Any
not.
other new business?
May I just say, like, the only other thing that, I don't even know if this is worth bringing up, but for many, many years now, one of the things that had been on kind of an agenda for zoning change is a rezoning. And specifically, and we're seeing things now, like there was an application at the ZBA for a convenience store gas station down on the circle. I don't know what's going on with that. But specifically, what the interest has been for many years is to expand the commercial zone line. And the idea was to bring it up 28 here,
Right.
and it's a big, obviously, it's a big undertaking. But my suggestion would be, it's been talked about for many, many years. There's been a lot of interest in it, and it seems to make sense in terms of where commercial activity would be placed, given, you got Hannaford's and everything going on. I wonder if this year we could at least spend time determining what steps are needed to go forward with that as a plan. So all we've ever done in the committee is discussed it, but we've never really nailed down, okay, if we're to do that, the first step is a feasibility study, or the next step is whatever they happen to be, I don't know.
Right.
But I'm wondering if this year, to maybe try to move that along, if anybody is interested in moving it along, we would say, let's commit to seeing if the voters would agree to allow the first step to take place, or the first couple of steps, whatever it is. I have no idea, but the question is whether it's worth a discussion in this session to actually take it and turn it into a concrete step toward that direction. Or maybe the decision is, no, we don't really need to change our zoning. Let's leave it as is. But
I
it
mean,
might be,
it's talked about in the site
We
master
did-
plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did
Yeah, I mean,
extensive work on a rezoning.
right, rezoning has
plan.
been an issue for many, many years, and I think there's a consensus that people feel that rezoning is appropriate and it should take place. And my thought on that is to be ahead of it, because it would be nice to have it in place as activity develops. Otherwise, it just kind of happens helter-skelter, and you have things going in different
Right.
places. And if you're thinking about the future and some more commercial, not that you're going to overdevelop this area, that's not it at all, but if this is going to be the commercial zone, it's too small, it needs to be expanded. And maybe we can think about as a committee, what's the next appropriate step, and then take that next step to at least begin the process. Not that we would accomplish that.
It almost seems to me you need another committee to really go down that.
That could,
that
exactly.
Working group
And
that starts to formulate what the
yeah,
backdrop should
the
be.
rezoning committee or something, and that could be something we can decide, suggest.
Because that was pretty contentious, even I remember in that master plan
Oh, it sure was.
discussion.
Here it was.
Was it?
Very.
Yeah. Yeah.
People didn't
Multitude of
want
opinions.
want
Yeah,
to
it was
change
very-
the zone?
yeah.
I say, well, that's good too.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of thrown
Yeah,
about how much outcry there was about upsetting the apple cart.
I got
Kind of
that.
thing.
Well, that's good too. I mean, that's good to know. And then.
That's why I think that to emanate from a working group that kind of then can bring a proposal forward.
Yeah. No, that's good too.
Yeah, that's a lot of outreach, like a lot of outreach.
If you start to take that up as a topic here and you're gonna propose the rezoning and wholesale change, I think there's gonna be a lot of
Yeah,
uproar.
that's a bigger animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't dismiss the idea, but I think the question is how do you really start that
Right.
process to go?
Well, it hasn't started yet, and maybe that's the reason, is because people are fine with it. I mean, the suggestion with everybody is that the commercial zoning line is here, and it was just a matter of bringing it here. And of course, it would be mixed because it's residential and commercial, so none of that would change. But the commercial line would go up Route 28. And the idea was so that commercial activity wouldn't be scattered throughout the village, but rather would
I
go
think
in.
it's a ton of merit. I mean,
Right.
last time people wanted, commercial/residential areas, they had the Home Depot going in next to them.
Well, that's right, exactly.
But,
right.
as much as, common sense you would think would prevail on it, it was pretty contentious.
Yeah, no, and I'm actually on the other side of the issue because I like saying, when Hannaford's went in and Dunkin' Donuts, when McDonald's went in, I was like, really? We're gonna have a McDonald's on the end of my street? We're gonna move the yellow farmhouse and put a McDonald's? That was like the first thing that happened on my street, and I was like, okay. And then it went to Hannaford's, and then there was a Roma Joe's, and then there was Dunkin' Donuts. And I was like, and we got a traffic light, which we never had, going back 38 years, there was no traffic light there. But I'm saying if it's going to happen, I think the town should be ahead of it, at least in the sense of where it can happen and what makes sense in the town.
There's some type, isn't the master plan, there's some working group again around that? Is there? or am I
There's
just-
the master plan implementation committee.
Implementation committee.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep,
Could
we need to be meeting, we need to meet soon. but
I'm a
gonna
proud
have to-
member. I'm a proud member, in fact.
Oh, you are?
I'm gonna reschedule that
To me,
meeting.
that would be the place. to
Right,
start
to
the
implement
Yeah.
the, yeah. But I mean, ultimately, any zoning change, of course, has to go through the zoning process.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
you would have to come here, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, to have the master plan implementation committee think about what next steps might be on that. I'm not eager, yeah, right, yeah, just add that to the list.
Pass that on.
new business?
Nope.
Public input? No public.
All right.
Make
I don't know.
that be up or down. Any other discussion points?
Quick question, Jesse. When you talk to the town attorney, you know, you were trying to line up enough people. It occurred to me on my way here tonight, if Nick was here, can both the zoning board representative and the zoning board alternate serve at the same time?
Oh, you mean like the Board of Selectmen representative?
Yeah.
So you would just be the alternate, like you would be in the audience, I guess. and Nick
Right,
would
but
be
if
sitting
I
at the
was
table.
one, Nick and I were both here, both needed to make up a quorum, would that make for a legal meeting?
I don't know.
I don't
Because
either,
you're the
that's fine.
alternate to Nick, so I don't know if you would make a quorum if it was just you and Nick and one other person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
So
don't
does-
know how that would work.
Doesn't it matter what committee you're a member of? Or this isn't really a board, though. Is that the difference? They're board members on a committee.
I'm not sure.
If you think of it, just ask him.
Yeah.
It must have come up somewhere. but-
Okay, good question. All right,
Future meeting date?
pulling up the calendar.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Mm, About. Give me the 17th or the 18th? That's a Wednesday or a Thursday? The Master Plan Implementation Committee was supposed to meet on the 17th, but I need to reschedule that because I just don't have the work
Planning
done for
board
that.
is the 16th, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so those 2 days will work for me.
October, you're talking about?
September, like in a couple weeks?
Oh.
Do we want to
okay.
meet in a couple weeks?
We kind of have to.
Yeah, right, I mean.
Right,
I can't do it any sooner than
Yeah, I can't do it any sooner than that either. I have to get all this work done.
that. Is that detail?
And prepare for the meeting. So, yeah, I can't do
what
it
was
any
the
sooner.
date, Jesse?
The,
I prefer the 18th.
I would as well. September 18th is a Thursday.
Thursday meeting.
Does that work?
Doesn't work for
That's
me, but I'm an alternate, so
Okay.
it may not matter.
All right, I'll put out an email to the committee to see what they have. So Thursday. Do we want to, do a couple meetings? We'll schedule a couple of them right away? Sure.
The thing about scheduling the meetings with so many of us absent, how many of us are absent? Like only a couple?
Yeah, there's only,
Just-
there's only two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not like you're like,
No,
yeah, there's only two of you
Okay.
guys.
all right.
2 weeks from the 18th would be the ZBA meeting if it's on a Thursday.
Right.
And September 29th and 30th and October 1st.
What about, let's see,
About like 6th or 7th of October.
you are available this
Yeah,
September?
I'm traveling the next 2 weeks, but other than that, I'm flexible.
Okay, what about, then what about October 6th? That's a Monday.
Works for me.
That's good.
Okay, and then I'll see what the other two, can do, go from there. Okay, well, that'll do for right now.
Just see what's on Monday's select board.
The 6th?
Is select board on Mondays?
They meet on Tuesdays.
They're on Tuesdays.
Yep. The opposite, from planning. Okay,
Okay, very good. Need a motion for adjournment.
Don't move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
until September 18th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.